Cool.
Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Steve Rowell here. Today is Thursday, February the 7th, 2019. It's 4 p.m. in New York, 1 p.m. in Los Angeles, 9 p.m. in London, and Sydney, Australia is at 8 a.m. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I'm glad to welcome back my one of my newest co-hosts, Steve Rowell. And Steve, we've had some fascinating conversations for only having done a couple of podcasts so far, especially when we found out that amazing synchronicity earlier this week. So we've kind of set the bar high here. I mean, we have to kind of see what can we do to top this, right? I don't know if we can do it. We may not be able to. But
we'll see what comes out today.
Exactly. Well, that's all we can do. We just do our best every single time. So if you are tuning into the live stream and you're listening to us live as we're recording this, please feel free to enter any questions you want us to address into the comment section, and we'd be glad to do that. While we're waiting for people to do that, we'll just kind of get started and talk about things. And I'm trying to think what my first topic to bring up is. I think what I'm going to do is bring up something that I had kind of hinted at that I was going to be working on, Steve. Last week, I think I talked about it a little bit, but I have been exploring the idea, as you know, of creating a local workshop in my own area related to the law of attraction. And you and many of the other co-hosts were very kind to help me out by telling me stories of how you all met your spouses and significant others and so forth. And it's been really, really great. I have to say, just recording all of those has been really fun because it's great to hear how people meet, and then also to catch how the law of attraction played a role in it. But just, it's a feel-good exercise. So I'm not quite sure why I'm mentioning it, other than to say thank you for recording it with me, and thanks also to my other co-hosts for doing it, because I mean I'm not quite sure how it's all going to come out, but I think I'm certainly having fun along the way. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
That's great. It was a pleasure. If not a little bit odd, because as we said, when me and Gemma met, that was before I even knew what the law of attraction was.
Right.
And before I'd read my first book, The Secret on the law of attraction. So it was very strange to be able to try and then port my mind back to before I knew about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then try and intertwine where the law of attraction had actually played a part in what happened.
Right.
So it was. We were just talking about that now before we came on, weren't we? It's sometimes nice to be able to look back to where you were, but equally, and the things that you've learned from the experiences that you had then, which then you can pull experience from and use in the present day,
right?
In your current reality.
Absolutely.
But as you mentioned, sometimes I think you can get hung up on the emotions and the feelings that you had back then, which can sometimes make you feel like you're back there, which is why being in the present moment is so important and bringing yourself back to it.
Yeah.
Because if you sit there too long, your mind can soon go back to where you don't really want it to be.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. And with me and Louise, it was the same thing, because she and I met long before I had even heard of the phrase law of attraction. I was aware of some of the more positive psychology-oriented people, the Tony Robbinses of the world, or Napoleon Hill, or, that kind of thing. But law of attraction, I'd never heard that term. I wasn't even aware of Esther Jerry Hicks or Abraham Hicks. I wasn't aware of any of that. The Secret hadn't come out yet. And I was just stumbling along like everybody else. And stumbling rather painfully and badly, actually. But as I look back at it... I
think we all started off in that sort of space at one point, didn't we?
Yeah,
stumbling along.
It's true. It's true. But, I mean, as you were telling your story, I shared our story about how we met. And I was also going to tell you another part, and I forgot to tell you at the time. But you talked about when we were doing the recording, you talked about how you'd manifested all these really, really cool things, and how you and Jim have manifested virtually everything now that you've learned how law of attraction works, which is pretty cool. And we ended up manifesting the money to pay for our wedding. It's just we did it in a way that I wouldn't recommend, because what happened was Louise and I met in May of 1998, and it was a little rocky at first, but by June we were a couple. And that August, I'd just gotten, for me, a new car. It was used, but it was, for me, a new car. It was like a couple years old. It was a Toyota Camry. Really nice one, too. And we were driving down to Rhode Island. Now, Connecticut and Rhode Island, since you're in the UK, I'll explain to you, they're both in New England. They're very, very small states. They're in, like, the bottom right corner of New England. And Rhode Island, you can drive through in 45 minutes. The longest trip to Connecticut, if there's no traffic, is about 3 hours. So they're not really, really big regions. But we drove down to Rhode Island to go to the beaches. And then afterward, we were going to go to her parents' house and spend the night and stay there till breakfast, I guess, and then take off. Well, we went down to the beaches, and it was very nice. It was middle of the week. There was nobody down there. So, it was just very quiet, even though it was in the middle of the summer. It was just relatively quiet on the beach, and just had a great time. And then we got to the car to drive up to where her parents live, and she said to me, why don't you let me drive, because obviously I know the road better. And I uttered at that point the most fateful words that you can possibly utter in the English language. Sure, that's fine, just don't get into an accident. Half an hour later, we're on the side of the road because this lady who was going to a wedding at a private home had pulled in front of us on a highway, 45-mile-per-hour highway. Nobody else on the highway. This is a road that on the weekends is jam-packed with beachgoers. Nobody was on this road. Nobody. And she pulls in front of us about 100 yards ahead and stops in the middle of our lane to make sure she's in the right place for the wedding. Louise finally realizes what the heck has just happened, slams onto the brakes, we slam into her, and we've just wrecked the car. So,
awesome. Well, not awesome, but...
but you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, yeah, please. Law of attraction is a fair friend. No, it was exactly what I was focused on, and I was afraid of, and sure enough, it came true. Well, at the time, my mind wasn't really in a great place because my brand new car had just been wrecked, so I was not in a real happy place, and I was not thinking clearly. But we went to the hospital, got checked out and so forth, and while we're at the hospital, I'm waiting on a gurney to be x-rayed. And somebody else gets pulled up on a gurney, and it turns out to be the driver of the other car. And I look over at her, and I'm thinking, I just can't even look at her. So I look away, and she looks up at me, and she says, "What happened?" And I look at her, and I say, "Well, you just pulled in front of us and stopped in the middle of our lane, and we couldn't stop in time and slammed into you." And then she said, "Oh, I don't remember that." And I could just see the wheels starting to turn. Let's turn the story around. Let's change the story so that the insurance will work out in my favor and all this kind of thing. And I got really mad, really, really mad. Like, oh, no, you're not going to get away with this. Not going to happen. So, long story short, later on I ended up meeting with her insurance agent, or adjuster actually, the representative from her insurance company, who was wonderful. She was a wonderful, very sympathetic. First words out of her mouth was, "We're at fault, let's settle." And I said, "Oh, well, okay, I can work with that." And the bottom line there is what we settled for, including replacing my car, replacing some of the stuff that got damaged. We had a number of minor injuries that got treated. We both lost time from work. When you added it all up, it came to a figure that not only replaced the car, but paid for the wedding and an engagement ring. So that's why I say I don't recommend going that route to pay for a wedding, but it did work.
That reminds me of mine and Gemma's story also, because when we decided we used to live up in Yorkshire, which is a county in the north of England,
right?
And we holidayed down in Norfolk, where we live now. In April 2014. Mm-hmm. And we liked it down here so much, we just decided we wanted to move here.
Mm-hmm.
So we set the intention of moving here.
Okay.
This is when we already started. We were already on this road to using the law of attraction intentionally to get to where we wanted to be in life.
Mm-hmm.
And we set the intention to get down here. I knew I was getting made redundant from my job at the end of 2014. So I chose to take the redundancy because I knew we'd be moving.
For American audiences, you got laid off. You basically lost the job because the terminology is different in America.
I lost the job. Yeah, it was a law of attraction that probably sorted all that out for me.
Right.
Because I actually got some redundancy money from that as well, which was good.
Yeah.
But we found a house to rent first of all in Norfolk. It was a private rented house. We found it on Facebook, funnily enough, and the landlord said he wanted 6 months' rent up front, which was about £5,000, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have that money in the bank, but we said yes.
You live dangerously.
Yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem. We'll take the house and we'll move in on the 2nd of January 2015. So this was in December or November, I think. And then we went on holiday, came back, had Christmas, and then New Year's Day we were packing the house up. Still didn't have the money for the rent. So this is the first. This is on the 1st of January. No money for the rent. But we actually had. I bought a car. Not a new car. Similar situation to you again. I bought a Ford Focus. Before about 3 or 4 months before we were going to move. And it broke down just after I bought it, so it went back to the garage. And they lent me a rental car from the garage to use whilst mine was in there being fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And we were coming back from the town to where we lived, and the passenger side front tyre blew. It burst.
Oh my!
And we crashed. And we crashed the car at the side of the road, and we were both injured. So we phoned them up. The breakdown guys came out and looked at the tyre, and they said that tyre shouldn't even be on the car. It's illegal.
Oh,
completely illegal. It was all shredded. So we told the garage that this had happened, and they said, well, there's nothing we can do. So we went through the insurance, and we ended up getting the exact amount of money from the insurance claim that we needed to pay the 6 months rent.
Of course you did.
And it came into my bank account. I knew it was happening, but I didn't know how much I was going to get, or I didn't even correlate that this was where the money for the rent was going to come from. But yeah, we moved on the 2nd, and the money went into my account on the 2nd, so we had enough to pay the landlord of the new property the day we moved in. So but every time, this is the secret with this stuff. Every time something like that happens, your belief in it grows, doesn't it? And then it grows again, and it grows again, and then you start believing that you can do even more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
Which is why then you end up stepping it up a bit. Each time you'll step it up a little bit further and say, right, okay, well, let's try this. Let's go down this route. Let's start on a track to this house that we can't currently afford, or this car that we can't currently afford. But you'd never say you can't afford it. You'd say that we're going to go there, we're going to get this, the money's going to turn up, and then you let it go, don't you? And you just go on that track down there, and then eventually, what happens? You've got what you desired, and it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
It's crazy, but yes, it is. And once again, I want to reiterate: we do not recommend getting into auto accidents in order to finance dreams.
Not on purpose, anyway.
No. Try to avoid that if you can. This is about working to improve your thought process, not to regrade, not to step backward.
But it's strange because even now, I'll still have thoughts that I think, whoa, I wish I hadn't have had that thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll change it to something else. But sometimes I'll sit with a thought, even though I know it's the wrong one to be having.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm thinking about, inevitably later that day, does turn up. And I see it over and over again with things. So I think a good example was we went over to France on holiday, see some friends. And whilst we were over there, they had 2 dogs. I don't know if I've told you this one before. I don't think I have. And so. do you know what a tick is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know whether you had a different name in America for them.
No, we get ticked off about them too.
But the dogs, we were sat in their living room, sat on a chair, and there was this big thing on the chair next to me, and it was a blood-filled tick.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't very nice, and it made me. I really didn't like it. It made my skin crawl. I don't like things like that, and that it sort of played on my mind a while. And then we came back home to England, and we've got a dog. And I got up one morning, and I was laid in bed thinking, I don't know why, I started thinking about those ticks. And I was thinking, I hope Eddie, which is the dog's name, I hope Eddie doesn't get a tick on him, because that'd be awful. And I started getting all these horrible itchy feelings again that I had from over there, so I associated it with that experience. And then later on that day, what did I find on the living room rug?
Another tick.
Tick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's just I mean, you can't make that stuff up.
Well, that's the kind you actually don't really want to make up when it really comes down to it.
No, you don't. And it just shows that if you focus on the wrong things, the things that you don't want, they will also turn up. And that's, yeah. Well, it's not a nice thing to find.
Well, it's also a reminder that you get the opportunity to change your mind. So, for instance, when you asked, do we have ticks here? Do we call it the same thing? And the answer is yes. I mean, if you've heard of Lyme disease is named for Lyme, Connecticut, where the disease originated. Okay. And it's a tick-borne disease, yeah. Yep. So we definitely do have ticks. But now I say that, and I realize, and I'm using this example deliberately, I realize that that's not something I want. I certainly don't want to attract something like Lyme disease into my life. So now that I've recognized that I've just gone down the path I don't want to go down, now it's my turn to turn it around, right? To pivot to what I want it to be. So now instead of thinking about Lyme disease, what I want to do is I want to start thinking about health and good health, So what's good health? Well, first of all, I've never had a tick in my life. So, I am, well, what's the best way to say that? I don't want to include the concept of a tick in there. So I am vermin free. No, that's still not right. I've always been healthy where the outside insect world is concerned.
But this is it. Sometimes you've got to choose your thoughts wisely, haven't you? Because you can still end up focusing on it the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Quite easily.
Yep.
And it's important to. I think the easiest way to do that is with appreciation and gratitude. I find.
Yeah.
So, just switch straight onto what you're actually grateful for about the opposite of what you don't want to attract. So,
right.
So you're grateful for having such a clean, happy, healthy body and house. Or something like that, where I'm trying to say, I'm wanting to go back to that. So yeah, you've got to focus on the gratitude and the appreciation of what you do want to attract, rather than thinking about what you don't, because that will inevitably end up turning up if you sit with that for long enough.
That's true. You're right. I want to ask you something too, because you used both words, and I often do the same thing. But Abraham makes a very big distinction between appreciation and gratitude, correctly noting that very often we also can have negative baggage associated with gratitude. So on their list, they use appreciation. They don't even include the word gratitude on their 22-point emotional scale. The word's not even in there. So they definitely say appreciation, and they say appreciation is one of the highest ones. It's tied with 4 others or 5 others for the number 1 position.
Tied with. I think Abraham just ties it with self-love, doesn't he?
Yeah, with love, let's see, what else is up there? There's love, there's appreciation, there's clarity, Oh, geez, I can't remember what the others are. I'd have to go get the book. But I think there are like 6 of them that are all together. Joy is in there.
Compassion. Compassion's one of them, I think.
I think Compassion's a little bit lower, but you may be right. I'm not sure.
Is it?
Yeah. But anyway, what I wanted to ask you is, what's your take on that? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree? Do you think that they're interchangeable? What do you think?
Now that you've mentioned appreciation is when I say it, it feels higher up than gratitude in vibrational energy when I say that word. Because if you appreciate something, you can be grateful for something. Appreciate. Let me have a think about this. Yeah, because you can be grateful for bad things that have happened.
Yeah.
You can be grateful for things in your past that have happened that are not necessarily, you're not necessarily appreciative of. I'm trying to think of an example though.
Well, how about having an auto accident in order to pay for something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you didn't enjoy the experience of the accident.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Nor did I
But
appreciate the after part where I was feeling like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this accident? And even though my brain hadn't processed the fact that it wasn't our fault. So I wasn't going to have to pay for it. But still, I mean, stuff was going through my head.
But yeah, it's a good one, is that? Because I suppose it's about perspective again, isn't it?
It is. Perspective is really huge. I love I don't know if you heard any parts of the show that Joel and I did this morning. He told a wonderful story about perspective. And I'll repeat it for you because it's such a great, it's a joke really. But it's the story of a woman who looks outside of her window to the neighbor's yard and sees that the woman next door has hung the laundry out to dry outside. And she comments to her husband, "Oh, our neighbor really needs to learn more about how to do the laundry. Look at it. I mean, the sheets are dirty. They're dingy. I mean, they just don't look very good at all. She needs to really learn how to do laundry." And the husband just kind of rolls his eyes and says, yeah, and then goes on with his day. And then a week later, the same thing happens. The neighbor hangs the laundry out to dry. And the woman says, there it is again. I'm going to have to go over and teach this woman how to do laundry. I mean, the sheets look terrible. They're yellow, dingy, dirty. They just don't look good at all. And the husband says, yeah, rolls his eyes and changes the subject again. Well, the next week, the woman looks out the window and sees this beautiful, clean laundry out on the line. And says, whoa, well, I'm glad to see our neighbor finally learned how to do the laundry. And her husband says, no, I just cleaned the window, that's all.
That's brilliant.
Perspective is everything.
It is indeed. This is it. Every single person can have a different. We talked about this the other day, didn't we? On Tuesday morning.
Yep.
Different people can look at the same thing or situation and see a completely different set of events, issues, because of their belief systems or upbringing or whatever. They'll see something in a completely different way to the way that you do, which is very interesting. And that's something that I like playing with and watching in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do this all the time. If we're out somewhere, I'll mention something to somebody and say, well, what's your thoughts on that? And they'll come back with something. I can't think of a specific example, but they'll come back with, for example, that was one. We were in like a busy square, and there were pigeons. Pigeons everywhere.
Sure.
And one person, I said, look at this, isn't it wonderful as people feeding the pigeons? And they said, dirty vermin, rats of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
That's one person's perspective. And there's another person that's feeding them that thinks they're the best thing since sliced bread. They're absolutely amazing creatures, and they come here every day to feed them with seeds and bread.
Right.
and they find it absolutely uplifting and it makes their day.
Yeah.
Whereas this person wants to get rid of them all and have them all killed. It's just odd how people can be so different in exactly the same situation.
What's interesting to
I mean,
me...
what's your take on that?
Well, what's interesting to me is that when you have two different people who have those two different kinds of reactions, and you're right, you can get that. I mean, it's actually not too hard to find situations where two different people look at the same thing and see it quite differently. I mean, anybody who's in law enforcement or in the court system knows that, because if a lawyer puts three people on the stand, all three of them saw the same event, they'll tell three different stories. I mean, they can't even get the story straight because they're seeing it through their own perspectives. But the thing that it tells me is I find that the person's story is indicative of where the person is at. So the person who didn't like the pigeons and saw them as vermin, I can just imagine that person's face in my mind, in a sense, and imagine them with this really angry, frustrated look on their face, because right now they're frustrated by something going on in their life. So they're just dissing everything. Whereas the person who is feeding the pigeons has this happy look on their face and, oh, yes, I just love the pigeons. I'm just enjoying my life, all that kind of thing. The perspective is completely different, even though they're both looking at the same pigeons.
And maybe the person that's feeding the pigeons, if you went there another day and they just had a car accident and smashed up their new Porsche, and then they came and saw the pigeons, they'd want to kick the pigeons?
Probably, yep.
Yeah.
That's when you see all the pigeons running all over the place.
That's it, yeah. But yeah, perspective perspective can change your whole day, can't it?
It really does.
And it is something that you can control and you can make a choice on as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if something out of your control has happened that's not conducive to what you were expecting, then you've still got a choice whether to allow that to put you in a place of discomfort and anger or stress or whatever, or allow it to be there, accept it for what it is, but still decide to go off on a happy route. So you've always got that choice, which is one of the things that I teach my clients is there is always a choice, and you can decide how long you're going to decide to sit in that pain that you've created yourself. Yeah, the situation might have happened, but you then create the pain afterwards in your own mind. The situation doesn't, in effect, create the pain. You do it yourself inside. So you've still got that choice to then change that perspective and go, okay, happened, done. It's not happening right now, so I can choose where I go next.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I've found very, very useful in in my life from when from my past experiences that I've had to deal with.
Sure. Isn't it interesting too how when we are faced with that opportunity to change perspective, to look at it differently, maybe through like what you do, through a life coach saying, oh, well, you can continue to look at it in that painful way, or you can shift over. You have the opportunity to shift. And we may even say, yes, I'm going to shift over. And then 2 days later, we're right back where we were before, because we keep wanting to go back and defend this position that we were in before where it was so uncomfortable. And I have to keep defending that position. That's the position I know so well.
Because our subconscious is so used to being there that it does. Yes, it's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, but in a strange, weird way, it actually feels more comfortable to be in that pain than to not, because we're that used to sitting there and, like you say, defending that position and not moving away from it.
Yeah,
and I think that's where the choice, the illusion of no choice comes in, because the subconscious mind doesn't necessarily realise that it has got that choice to go off on a different track.
Right.
But we can teach it to have that choice by repeating certain behaviours and allowing it to realise that actually I don't have to do that anymore. It's not useful anymore. But you've got to. It's about practicing day after day after day after day. Generally takes, from experience with me and my clients, it takes around 30 days of doing something over and over again to then reprogram that little bit but you got lots of these little bits that need reprogramming.
It's true. Isn't it interesting, too? If you do stick to a program of some kind to do some reprogramming, 30 days does seem to be the number. And I don't know why, because 30 days is a month, so why does it take a month? It's got to be something that we expect on a subconscious level or whatever, but it's so odd. It's 30 days.
You can change it instantly if you believe that you can.
Yeah.
But I think 30 days is just more believable.
Maybe
that's what it is.
Yeah, that could be.
Because you've got your belief system.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is.
I don't see any questions, but anyone who's listening to the live stream, if you have questions, feel free to type them in and we'll be glad to discuss them. But until we see the questions, we'll just keep coming up with our own questions because we're good at it. You know? we're used to exploring all the most difficult and uncomfortable areas of being deliberate creators. So Steve does it every day with his clients, and I mean, actually that's something I haven't asked you about. I usually ask all of my life coach co-hosts about this, but what was your reason for becoming a life coach? I don't think I've asked you that one.
I think you did.
Did I?
But I'll answer it again. It's not a problem.
Okay.
My reason was because I've gone from a place of, I suppose you could say, depression, despair, pain and agony inside my mind to a place of joy, peace and happiness and appreciation of everything that I've got, which is a very, very nice is a bit of a rubbish word, but it's an absolutely awesome place to be now. And I enjoy my life 100% to the full every single day. Yes, I still have to do work. I still work on myself. I don't think you can ever stop doing that.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'll go back to your own programs.
No kidding.
But because I've gone from where I was to where I am, I wanted to show other people that it was possible, and that's it. That is it. That's the only reason that I do what I do, is to show other people that it's possible to get from a place of absolute despair to actually enjoying every moment that you've got moving forward, because you only ever have got each moment to live moment by moment.
Right.
And once you realise that, there's so much power in that nothing that's happened previously can affect you anymore. It can't destroy anything because it's not happening right now unless you decide to bring it into the now by thinking about it. And I think that's the only reason why, because I've felt what it's like. I want to give it to other people and allow them to feel that, you know, that joy and.
You want to share that super uplifting feeling with other people, which is a great thing to do. Yeah.
And I mean, even when I'm coaching clients, I very often do get emotional. So if they have a breakthrough, I'll break down sometimes because I'll see that they've had this massive breakthrough. They'll be so uplifted and happy and just open to whatever can, you know, all the possibilities that are now there that weren't there before. And it's just so rewarding. So rewarding.
Yeah, I hear it. Actually, we do have a question from Jeffrey. If I can get this up here. He says, do coaches get along with one another, and how do they work together?
Coaches get along with one another. Yeah, a lot of my friends are coaches. So I've got my own coach. Daniel is my coach, and I'm a firm believer that every coach needs a coach, because I'm always improving. I'm always getting better. I'm growing all the time. So how can I help other people grow unless I'm doing the same thing? But yeah, all coaches do get on together because the thing is, and this is a vibrational, synchronicity, law of attraction thing. I will only attract clients that want to work with me because it will work. If I very rarely get a client that will book a call with me to talk about what I do that hasn't already decided that I'm right for them. Because it'll take someone a long time to decide which coach is best, because they'll do a lot of, you know, watching different people, talking to them.
Right.
So I do get a lot of people that have had trauma in their lives that want to work with me because they resonate with what I'm talking about and
Right.
and how I work, which is great because I'm actually helping. It's great for me as well because I'm helping people that have been in a similar situation to me anyway. Again, that's one thing that I do. I mean, I do with the charity, and I'm going to be doing with the church as well. Is helping people that have been through that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's very rewarding for me, and I think that comes across in the coaching as well because I actually want to help these people. I don't. If someone comes on a call with me that I don't think I can help, I won't take their money. I'll tell them, no, I don't
Right.
think I'm right. I don't think it's going to work, and I'll send them on the way. Even if someone's paid me for coaching, and then it's not working, I'll give them the money back and say, look, it's not going to work. It's not working. Go find somebody else that it can work with. I'll never take money from someone that I know I can't help because it's pointless. Because all that's going to happen is they're just going to get disheartened and
Right.
I'm going to get disheartened, and it's just not the way to do business, really. But yeah, other coaches, we all get on, we all chat. I've got, don't know now, numbers wise, at least 20 or 30 people that I know that are coaches that I speak to. We share ideas, we bounce things off each other.
Yeah.
Because there isn't any competition out there, really. You're not in competition with anybody else because you will only attract and work with people that resonate with you.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And my experience just being a host of a talk show with, I think probably somewhere around 8 or 9 different life coaches at one time or another have been regular co-hosts on the show. And every single one of them was the kind of person who you would just like to have a conversation with, that it just was comfortable to talk to. In fact, of all the life coaches I've ever talked with, conversationally, whatever, there was only one who didn't fit that mold. And sadly, he was actually somebody who lives nearby to where I live. But the guy had so many issues that were unresolved issues, tremendous numbers of unresolved issues, that literally everything that came out of his mouth was negative. And it was just painful to listen to the guy. But that's the lone exception. Everybody else, and I think that's the secret. You work through your own stuff, right? You resolve your own issues. You get coaching. You do whatever it takes to get yourself in that better place, so that you can be a benefit to somebody else. It's one of the best points that Abraham makes. I mean, Abraham talks about how you really can't, coaching or not, just as a friend, you really can't help somebody else unless you're in a good place. If you're not in a good place, you've got nothing to give to them. So it's actually a job requirement for a coach to be in a good place, I think.
You've got to be. You can. If I'd have tried to, well, I wouldn't even have, back before I started on this journey. There's no way I would have even thought about trying to help someone else. I couldn't even help myself.
Right.
Never mind think about helping anybody else.
Right.
I had to go through all that process. I mean, I've spent monetary wise around about £50,000 on working on me.
Wow.
Over that period of time, and I still spend money now. I still buy things. I'll still go on courses. It never stops because I've had to do that. Well, I didn't have to do it. I've chosen to do that to better myself. Because otherwise, how can I ever work with somebody else if I haven't done something that's going to help me help them? There's just no way you can do it. You've got to be, like you say, in a good place. You've got to be sure of yourself. You've got to be living your truth. I think that's the main part, is living your truth and being 100% authentic about who you are.
Right.
Because people can see, if you're talking about your story or things like that, people, you're not going to be able to get it across in a way that's actually going to help someone if you've still got massive pain, anguish and issues going on inside you about what happened in your past.
Absolutely.
You've got to deal with it. You've got to work through it, and you've got to get past that.
And that's a good thing too, because that means that whenever you make a new contact with another coach, odds are pretty good it's going to be a friend by the time you're done, because you're going to be on the same wavelength. And that's a nice feeling.
Yeah, I found that because you start connecting with people that not only are in a similar mindset to you, but they're in they're in a place where they want to share, they want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got some coaches that we'll have a conversation. No money will change hands. We'll just have a conversation and we'll both learn from each other, go our separate ways, come back together again later on, have another chat, learn some more. And that's what it's about. I mean, I think since I've started on this journey down this road, with the life coaching and with the law of attraction stuff, I've met so many amazing people that don't want anything from anybody. They're just who they are. They're authentic. They're quite happy to tell you about all their issues and troubles that they've had in their life, how they've got through them, what they do now, how they help other people. And there's no barriers to what they will or won't share with you. And I think that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't need to be, because everybody that's at that stage realizes that clients, it's not even about the money, it's about helping people. This is what people that haven't gone through that work don't seem to understand, that actually the money's not important because we can create that anyway. We can create that. That'll come in anyway, as long as we're being of service to other people and doing it from a place of love and compassion. That's it. It's as simple as that. If you're in a place of love and compassion the majority of the time, your frequency's up here anyway. Mm-hmm. So abundance, wealth, whatever you want to call it, just turns up. So you don't need to worry about where the next paycheck's coming from. You don't need to worry about anything. It just happens. I think you found that as well.
But for the most part, yeah. I mean, I clearly do the podcast out of pure love, because so far I have not generated any money out of it. I just do it because I enjoy it so much. And I will continue to do it as long as I possibly can do it, because I enjoy it so much. I won't lie and say that I'd like to get some money out of it, and I would. That's one reason why I'm pursuing the local workshop angle. I've tried doing the coaching thing, and I'm fairly good at it, but I don't love it. And that's what I found. I mean, you love it. I can tell that you love it, and I can tell that the others who are my co-hosts all love it too. I just didn't love it. It just, for whatever reason, it didn't work for me. Whereas doing this, I love this. This is the fun one for me. So that's why I've been following this route. And in some ways, it's a little bit of a harder route because there's not the obvious monetization angle. You know, when you're a coach, well, you get paid for being a coach. That's just normal. You know, you don't get paid for being a podcaster. It's not the normal path. But, you know, just keep walking the path, and eventually stuff starts showing up. And that's what's been happening. Stuff started to show up. So do I know how it's all going to end up? No, I'm kind of like you, having put the offering in the house without having any money in the bank. I'm kind of in the same boat right now. But I'm just having the faith. It's like, you know, I don't know how it's going to work. Somehow.
It'll work out. It always does.
Yeah.
But this is it. I mean, I do know other podcasters that do make money out of podcasting, so there is a way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's about audience size, and you know that's coming. We're at a decent size now. We're not really big enough to have a big cash flow or sell a lot of advertising, and I don't really even want to sell advertising, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I've talked about it, but it's really not what I want to do. If I can find another way to monetize, I'll be very happy. So
yeah, because advertising's it's a bit. You have a break every 10 minutes, and there's a load of just nothing showing, all this other stuff going up, and I get that. I get that.
I think Jeffrey's in a funny mood today. He because his next question is, how do you feel about people that ask challenging questions?
I think it's fantastic.
I do too,
because it gets my mind working in a way that it probably hasn't before, and it helps me learn. It helps me learn because I'm always learning. I get things wrong all the time, as everybody does, but I'm quite happy with getting things wrong, because then I can learn from that and then do better next time. So yeah, I don't mind at all. It's a great thing to have.
I've gotten to the point in my mindset that I realize I never actually do anything wrong. I may miss my mark. I may not hit the mark I'm looking at, but I actually didn't do anything wrong. I just found another way to go hit the target.
No, you're right. So there is no. This is another thing I've been speaking about with my coach recently. There is no right or wrong.
No.
There just is. There just is and is. And then it's how you perceive it and what you do moving forward after you've learned from it.
There's also preferred and not preferred. That's a
Yes, there
legitimate
is.
offset there. So
Yeah.
whenever somebody's talking about right or wrong, I usually urge them to replace it with preferred and not preferred because it clarifies a whole lot when you do that. I find anyway.
Yeah.
Nasha's got a question.
Yeah.
She says, not so much a question. She was actually commenting on what Jeff said. She says, what might be challenging for you might not be challenging for another person. And that's true.
Exactly.
That's what coaching is about, really, right? Because you've already been through the challenge. It's not a challenge for you anymore.
Yeah. But well, I still have challenges. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
There's still things that I find difficult, and but one of those is standing up in front of a lot of people and talking. But that's the next thing that I want to push myself into doing. So I want to get on stage and I want to start sharing my story to an audience that can benefit from it.
Right.
So that's something I'm going to be working on soon.
Good.
It scares me to death.
Oh, yeah.
but that's good because if I've got some sort of fear around something that I want to do, it means I should go and do it because then I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone again.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm not very often within my comfort zone anymore. I'll keep like the opportunity with this. I've never done a podcast before. Never been a host on a podcast. But I just said yes. Didn't know what to expect. Never done it before. Very nervous, but just crack on and do it anyway and learn as you go. I think that's the best way to do it.
Hey, that's the way I learned. When I first started our first episode, and I've told you this story, I know. Not only had I never done it before, but I still hadn't done it for the first 20 minutes because our first 20 minutes didn't actually get recorded like I thought it was being recorded. So I learned a whole lot that day about how to make sure you're actually being recorded when you're doing the podcast. It's funny too if you actually replay that episode is still on our website, and if you can go find it and replay that first episode, the way the podcast starts is now we're on the air.
So yeah, for 20 minutes you were talking away, fantastic, great.
And it was a great 20 minutes. That's the real sad part. I mean, we were off to this great start, and oh wait a minute, it's not working right.
That's awesome.
So there you go. Yeah, that's learning on the job. That's what happens. It's good. So congratulations on joining the podcast to start reaching out, because you are now speaking to an audience. You may not be able to see them yet, but you're speaking to an audience, and it's a good sized audience. So you're doing it.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah,
it's just that I can't see them. I could only see you on my screen there.
Exactly. Yeah, and to be honest, that was one of the reasons I started to do a podcast in the first place, because I figured, well, I can handle that much. If I can't see the audience, then I can't get freaked out.
No. The first one I did on the first Thursday evening. Oh no, it wasn't Thursday evening. What day was it when I was on with Kelly? I can't remember.
Kelly, it would have been Thursday around 1 p.m. your time.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was your morning show with Joel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I was very freaked out.
Were you?
Even though I couldn't see anybody, I was still freaked out. But it was enjoyable. Once I got into it, it was fine. It was just the initial. What is it? Sort of, you go into fight and flight mode, don't you? Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Right.
Why am I doing this?
So you do things like, is this thing on?
I can see someone. Something's happening.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, no, but it's a great experience. Now I'm into it. It's not scary anymore. It's just nice and relaxed and chilled out.
See, now I'm right. Jeffrey is definitely in a silly mood today, because here's his next question. His next question is, okay, where are the comedians to coach him? And
I think we've found our. Hang on, I think we found our comedian right there.
There it is, Jeffrey. You're volunteered. Come onto the platform.
Send him the link, and we'll get him involved.
Absolutely. Well, actually, the link is actually in the description. So, Jeffrey, all you have to do is go click the Blue Jeans link, and you'll be on with us, and they will put you on the spot. Yeah. Actually, it's true though, because with Alex King and a couple of others, I brought them on precisely because they had a comedic background.
Yeah.
I
All
actually
right. Okay.
I,
That's
I
cool.
actually did a search for people who knew something about the law of attraction who also were comedians, and Alex was one of them. And with her
Yeah. Yeah.
especially, it's worked out beautifully. Carlos, who was on for a while, was great, except that he outgrew us because his career in Hollywood started to take off, so he couldn't do the show anymore. But he was very good. He was funny, you know. So I may actually try to do that again. Try to bring more comedians in to be co-hosts as slots become open, because it's
Well,
fun.
it keeps it fresh and fun. Yeah.
It does. It
Definitely.
does. Nothing like having somebody come in who's got that, you know, that little bit of a warped sense of humor to just give you
Yeah.
talk about perspective.
That's
We were
it.
talking about perspective before. The comedic perspective is a completely different perspective, and it gives you, you know, the ability to laugh at yourself, among other things.
That's yeah. I've got a little bit of a warped sense of humour at times, but we won't go down that route today.
On the contrary, good for you. That's what I say. Good for you. Yeah. If you don't have a warped sense of humor, there's something wrong with you. That's the way I look at it. Paula had a comment for you. She says, I didn't come across that way, Steve, because I remember watching that show and it was very good. I'm not sure what show that is.
Oh, she's probably talking about the Jeffrey's joined. He's on. He's taking the plunge.
Oh, he's here. Oh, my goodness. Let's make sure he's unmuted.
How are you?
There he is. Hello.
Can you hear me?
We certainly can.
Ah, yes.
All right, cool. Yay, I'm talking about facing my own fears. So, first time on a podcast ever. Thank you very much. This is my face. This is my voice. I'm the one that asks all the annoying questions.
Well, to be honest, Jeffrey, I really like your questions because they make me think. They make me think.
Okay.
And,
Well, that's the thing.
it's
Like,
good.
I listen to podcasts all the time and just think and ask questions like, what's the next natural step for me and for what's happening. So, I know. I'm just used to thinking things out and then writing them down or typing them in. So, this is me on the fly.
Congratulations.
Well, no, well done for taking that initiative and actually pushing yourself into doing it because it's not easy. Believe me, I know. I did it a few weeks ago.
I know, and that's what you're saying about, like, getting up on stage. To me, like, being on stage is something that I was kind of born to do.
Fantastic.
So, you know, in college, I was in an improv group, and I did all sorts of... I've never done stand-up. I've always just been, like, on-the-fly guy, and people laugh.
Right.
So being an entertainer kind of just is... I mean, it's something natural for me, but it's actually watching you guys something very natural for you as well. You're just
Really? I
not used
never
to
thought
doing
of
it on
myself like that.
stage with a microphone, right? But
Yeah.
what helps me is like getting into that mindset of like, all right, I believe so much in what I'm saying and what I'm doing that I'm going to let it flow. There's a whole series of TED Talks on like vulnerability. I would suggest you watch some of those and like let yourself be vulnerable. Like right now. I'm hella vulnerable.
You're absolutely right. I mean, being vulnerable is something that opens you up to your audience because they can see that vulnerability in you, and it's something that you can work with quite well because you're open, aren't you? You're 100% open to the situation and what's going on. So you've got that flow, you've got that energy, and you can use that to then put out what you need to the audience.
And it also goes back to like the law of it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, to me, the law of attraction comes up in that instance where we say that the work is allowing. And so allowing means becoming vulnerable and becoming open.
Uh-oh, I think we just lost Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think his signal's gone.
Yeah, signal's having a little trouble. I liked where he was going, though, because he was right. That vulnerability is important with the law of attraction. I mean, when you want to be a deliberate creator, if you can be vulnerable, that's when you're going to get your best results for sure.
Yeah. Because if you're being vulnerable, you're 100% honest and open, and it is your truth.
Yeah.
And that's where you need to be.
Yeah.
That is where you need to be. So you're absolutely right. See if he pops back on.
Well, he might. I don't know.
He still says he's there.
Yeah. Well, I think he probably needs to reconnect to the Blue Jeans platform because like you said, he probably has a connection issue, and when he does that, it'll just reset itself. But he mentioned that this comes easily, and I wanted to refute that because if you had met me, say, back when I was in high school, you would have been absolutely stunned by the idea of me doing a podcast. I was one of the quietest people in school. If you heard a word out of me in a week, you were doing well. So for me to sit in front of a microphone and do this on a regular basis, it's really, more than anything else, it's a measure of how much work I've done on myself to allow myself to be that vulnerable, to put my life out there, to kind of live out in the public realm. And it took me a while.
Because it is a big thing to do. Yeah, it is a big thing to do.
It is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because you're leaving yourself open to criticism, you're leaving yourself open to, joy, and, everything, every possible, the word now.
Emotion.
Every possible eventuality can show up for you now, can't it? Which I suppose is a good thing, because if you're creating from a place of, creating intentionally, then all those possibilities now are out there. And the beauty of this stuff as well, social media, I've connected with people from all different places in the world, that there is absolutely no way I would have ever met these people otherwise, unless I'd done what I'd done, unless I'd shared my story and been authentic. There's no way I'd have met any of them. And the response I've had from doing that is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I've been blown away by the love that I've received from other people, because of what I'm doing. And it's such a wonderful feeling to get that.
I agree.
It's,
I agree completely.
I've got emotional
now. Well, while you get a tissue, I'll just add that one of the things that I learned early on from doing the podcast, and more precisely bringing other people on to interview, or when we got to the point where we were live streaming and I was getting commentary from listeners and interacting with them in that way, I found myself very early on feeling very empathetic to everyone I was talking to. If they were telling me about a happy story, I got really excited. If they were telling me about a really sad story, I got really depressed. And it became an opportunity for me to practice not getting wrapped up in someone else's emotions, but rather staying in my own space, staying in my own emotions. Yeah. And I am faced with that every single time. I've gotten pretty good at it, I think. I've gotten to the point now where, I hear somebody tell me, not so much necessarily the podcast, but maybe I'm interacting with somebody on Facebook and some post where they're laying their heart out about all these terrible things going on. And now I can actually interact without getting wrapped up in all of the pain that they've got. But I still feel it. I mean, it's still there. I know it's there. I just don't let it in so that I can be in the vibrational space that they need me to be in. So I'm growing, and I like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
It is.
Because you can quite easily get wrapped up in other people's emotions. But you're right. It's about accepting that it's there, but not. Again, I suppose it's like being in the present moment again, and not bringing emotions from your past into your present. So it's exactly the same sort of tools that you use to prevent someone else's negative energy coming into you. Exactly. It's not that you're not wanting to help them. It's that you have to keep that outside so that you can be of service. Because if you're feeling the same as them, you can't help them. You can't help them.
Well, that's just it. And that's the other thing that I've learned is that if I am not in that good feeling place, I don't even try to help. I mean, I've had people try to reach out to me saying, "Hey, I need some help," and I either just don't even answer, or I write back saying, "I'm sorry, I'm just not in a good place to help you right now," because I know I won't. Yeah. Doesn't matter what knowledge I've got. If I'm not feeling it, it's not going to work. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's one of the reasons I had trouble with the idea of being a coach, because when you're a coach, you got to be on. You got to be there for when that person needs you, and I couldn't always do that. So I guess that's my question to you: how do you do that?
I don't. If I'm not in the right space, I will reschedule something with someone.
Oh, okay.
Because there is no point in me going on. It's not very often I'm in that space.
Right.
But there are things that everyone's got a life. Things can come up, can't they? That can put you in that space. For example, my dad's been ill a while ago.
Yeah.
that can affect me. Because obviously you worry about people. So if that's the case, then I'd just be honest and just say, look, something's happened in my life. I can't be there for you at this time. Can we reschedule for another day? Yeah. Simple as that. There's no point in me going on and spending time with someone to help them if I'm not going to be of service. It's just useless, pointless.
Absolutely. Well, as usual, we started a show that I had no idea where it was going to go, but it was great. I loved it. This was really fun. So thank you for doing the journey with me today.
An hour already.
Can you believe it? I mean, that's one thing that Joel and I marvel at, how quickly the hour flies by. You look at the clock and you say, what happened? Did we just start this thing?
It's been great. So Tuesday, I won't be here.
Yes.
So apologies to everybody. I've got an important meeting I need to attend in London. So I won't be here Tuesday, but I'll be back on Thursday afternoon.
Exactly, yes. And I will be tapping into my bag of tricks to pull somebody in, and I already know who I'm going to reach out to. So we will fill the time slot, but you will be missed, Steve, for sure.
Thanks. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, you take care. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.